Episode 19 of Running with the Herd, a weekly McAlester Athletics coaches show here on KNED. It's a cold one outside today, 38 degrees on a Monday, February the 10th. I'm Brandon Green here, almost at BG with BG's Lunchbox. That's a little bit later if you want to listen to K101.3, but we have head coach of the McAlester boys basketball team, Mike Dooney, with us today. Again, Running with the Herd, brought to you by Reagan Auto and What About Bob's Restaurant. So, you ended up getting the wrong end of the stick there because it's the day after the Super Bowl Sunday, but thank you so much for joining us here this morning.
Thanks for having me.
So, let's just jump right into it. I know your goals are bigger than this, but it's still definitely worth mentioning. You guys went from 3 wins a year ago to 10 and counting this season, and only the third time in the last 13 years the program has hit the 10-plus win mark. What are your thoughts on this season to this point and the long-term progress that you're seeing from the head coaching role?
So 3 wins last year wasn't something that I was okay with, and just getting those young guys in there, getting experience that we got last year was really good for them. It's translated this year on just some of our game experience. They've been able to win some close games and know how to win, and it takes to win at the high school level, you have to know how to win. And our conference is so brutal. There's so many good teams, and they're not used to having to play this kind of schedule in the past. So to have 10 wins against this schedule is really, really impressive. I'm really happy with our young guys, and the future is really bright.
Now, what do you think about, I don't know if some teams might think this going in, but what do you think when you go to some of these teams that did maybe handle you guys maybe a little bit easier last year, and then one calendar year later, they're thinking, well, this isn't the same McAlester team that we were seeing a year ago and for a majority of the last decade.
Right, and that's what I've heard from the coaches going against them as we stand on the sidelines and talk, and they're like, man, you guys just look like a different team, a completely different team than you looked a year ago. And you add a good player like Rodney, and that helps, but the other guys have just gotten so much better, and they've taken the offseason serious, and they play a lot of ball during the summer, so it's been really fun as a coach to watch the development, the growth, but it's also been a journey because these young guys, they're young, and you make a lot of young mistakes, and as a coach, you're like, man, if they just had a little more senior leadership, if they had a little bit more experience here, some of these games that we've lost, instead of having 10 wins right now, we're sitting at 15, maybe 18 wins.
So you've had that nucleus of guys that you were talking about return, whether it be sophomores like Brandon Smith, Devion Bickham, Davian Pouncil's grown a lot this year, or senior leaders like your son Alex and Wesley Phillips. What's your analysis on them this season? I mean, just diving into it a little bit more compared to where they were a year ago, that growth that they made to be able to get you guys to the point that you're at right now.
So Brandon was able to contribute a lot last year
early
on, and his game has translated to this year. I mean, not much has stepped off. He's just stepped on the pedal a little bit there. Probably the one that had the most growth was Pouncil, and you could see it in the offseason. He hurt himself, so a lot of people didn't see him this summer. But I could see the growth from the offseason. He's a kid that when you ask him to do something, you don't have to ask him twice. He's very coachable. He does exactly what he is expected to do every day, and he doesn't miss practice. He doesn't miss weights. He's the kid that you don't have to worry about when you turn your back. Is he going to be working? He's always working. Very, very coachable kid that coaches love to coach that type of kid. For example, he hurt his foot, had a broke foot. Well, you can't do a lot of basketball with a broke foot. Well, he finds a way.
Kind of need that.
You kind of need that. So he finds a way, and that's one of our mottos is I want my guys to be resourceful. Don't give me an excuse, find a way to get things done. And that's what he did all summer as he would come in. When the other guys were working on coming off screens and shooting, he was over in a chair working on his form. He was throwing it off of a wall, working on form shooting. And it's no secret why he goes from not being a great shooter last year to a really, really good shooter this year.
We're at like 3 points a game to now almost 12, and he's been a great contributor for you guys this year.
And points per possession, I mean, if we got him the ball more, which I'm getting the guys to believe in getting the ball, when he gets hot, man, he gets really hot. We got to find the hot hand. So as they trust him more, they're not used to trusting him as much because he hadn't been this guy in the past. Now he's developed into a new person, so he's tough to handle because he's grown a couple inches. He shoots the ball a lot better. He finishes inside. But he's not the only one. I mean, Bickham, he took a step forward too. A lot of people don't know that he can score as well as he does, but he's unselfish and he's willing to take more of a role player position this year. You don't always get guys like that. So a lot of times everybody needs the ball in their hands or they feel like they're not contributing. Well, you don't need everybody to be the scorer. And that's something I was talking to my junior high guys about the other day is my son coming from Class A school, coming from when he was an 8th grader. He was a scorer in 8th grade. Mm-hmm. The 8th grade coach at Broken Arrow drew up every play for him. He came off the screens. He was the guy that they were trying to get the ball to. And then Class A ball, he was able to score pretty easy there. When we transitioned to 5A, he's like, he saw some of the guys we had, and he knew he had to figure out a different role. Mm-hmm. And it's not always, do I need to be the scorer to be the guy that's making the most impact? One of the stats that we track on our team is plus minuses. Mm-hmm. And people don't realize how important a plus minus is. And what that stat is
right.
How impactful are you on the court? Does the team score more or less when you're on the court?
Right.
So who scores the most when that individual's on the court? He actually is the highest plus minus on our team. He only scores 2 points a game.
Yeah, it's crazy. We were looking at that the other day. We were tracking the plus minuses, and I was like, hey, I was talking to Nate. I don't know when it was. I think it might have been shortly after the Bridge Creek tournament. But I was like, hey, do you know who's at the top of the plus minus? And he said, and he started listening to some of these guys and said, it's Alex. And he said, I can believe it, just because of how, it seems like your team knows your role and their role, different roles, depending on which lineup's on the floor.
Well, you got to have unselfish guys that are willing to fill those roles.
Right.
And most teams, it's the guys that get their name in the paper, get called out, the Rodzilla, they want those nicknames, right?
Right.
Well, that's scoring 22 points a game.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's only a couple of guys that you want doing that because everybody else is just as important. They're just different.
Right.
And one of the things Alex does really well is he gets those guys open. He sets screens for them. He takes charges. He does things that people are scared to fight through his screens because they're going to get a charge called off of it. Mm-hmm. He goes and guards the other team's best players. So he does a lot of things that the casual fan doesn't understand and doesn't pick up on. But as a coach and somebody that knows the game, when you see things like that, you're like, that's impactful. Mm-hmm. And when you see a plus-minus score, there's probably not a more important stat in the entire game of basketball because that's how you win games. Who scores the most, who doesn't score the most. Mm-hmm. And we got guys on our team right now that they're like, well, I can score better than him. Well, that's right, but are you making as big of an impact as what he makes on the court?
There's only one ball to share.
That's it.
And now you mentioned his name, though, and I got to talk to about it. If I don't mention a question about it, I'm sure a lot of the people that are tuning in that aren't McAlester fans are probably going to wonder why. But you did mention Rodney Washington, and it's not often that you see a freshman do the kind of stuff that he's been doing. So, just what kind of impact do you think that he's made for your team this year?
He's a walking highlight show. It's crazy. Every game, I'm like, wow, where did that come from? He does things that I don't even think about seeing on the court, and it's fun to watch. As a coach, you hope that one day you get to coach players like that. And I coached girls basketball for a really long time. Mm-hmm. And girls, you don't get those kind of highlights. So it's a different game when they play above the rim and they're able to shoot it the way he does and the creativity that he does with the ball in his hands. It's fun to watch as a coach. And, he handles it so well. So most people don't understand the pressure that comes along with being that type of player. Mm-hmm. The expectation that he has put on him every night, and people come out just to watch him play. Well, that puts a lot of pressure on a freshman, a kid that hasn't done this before.
Right.
And he's handled it so well, and he's done it the right way. It's not about him. Most nights he's willing to give up the ball. And that's something I've been most impressed with him about is he's not a selfish guy. And all I heard was, well, Rodney's going to be everything, and Rodney is this, and Rodney is that. That guy is not that way ego-wise. He is about his team. He wants to win. So what is going to put us in the best position to win, that's what he's about.
That's one thing I've really noticed when it comes to your guys this year, with how young really a lot of your team is, the team chemistry that comes along with it, and it shows on the floor as well, I believe.
And they played a lot together growing up. Those young guys have all played together. And then getting a guy that has IQ like Alex does that can get him open and they listen to him and they allow him to lead them on the floor, it helps put everything together. But that's one of the knocks we had this summer was they are very skilled. But who's willing to give up the shots and who's willing to share the ball? Because just because you're skilled, the ISO basketball doesn't translate to championships and winning a lot. James Harden looks really good, scores a lot of points.
Yep.
But he has never won a championship with that style of basketball. And you look at people like Steph, who is just as gifted and maybe more so gifted, but he gives up the ball. And how he moves off the ball and how he does things when he doesn't have the ball in his hand is so impressive, and people don't see that. Mm-hmm. Well, that's winning basketball. That's why they win championships there. That's the Warrior way and the Spurs way. And that's what I've been trying to preach to these guys is it's not the 2 minutes that you may have the ball in your hand is not the most impactful thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
what are you doing when you don't have the ball? We play a game that's 32 minutes. So 2 minutes is the only impact you're making on the game. You're not making very much impact.
Now, I do want to break down. This is just a bonus question that popped in my head. You mentioned you could play 32 minutes. You played 36 minutes the other night against the Tulsa Will Rogers. I know it's still kind of fresh, but one of the best games you're going to see in Oklahoma high school basketball this year. What did you think about your matchup with Will Rogers back in the MAC?
They're a great team. They're a young team. Our guys have grown up playing AAU with those boys, so there's relationships there. So they really want to win those games.
Right.
It's a fun game. They have really skilled players, and they have kids that can make shots, and that was evident because we were guarding them. We did a great job guarding them. I went back and watched the film, and there was only maybe 3 shots that were wide open or close to being open, and they were just making shots over the top of us, and they had got lucky a couple times and banked some shots in, and you can't do anything with that. And I just tell my guys, slap them on the butt, go down the floor, because you play great defense. We're not about the results, we're about the process. You do the right things, and it'll take care of itself in the long term.
Okay, so that's one of your district games. You got 3 more left this season, all 3 scheduled to happen this week. Hopefully the weather up in Tulsa and the northern part of Oklahoma kind of stays away so that we can get these games in this week. And but it's going to be a busy and important week. How do you feel about your team shaping up going towards the postseason?
If we can get our mental side, that's the problem with young teams, is they ride the roller coaster. They're not mature enough typically to handle the pressure and expectations and the fans and the people that are the outside noise. If we can handle the outside noise and worry about playing basketball instead of worrying about officials and worrying about what someone else is doing, I'll take my team against anybody. I love these guys. These guys are coachable. They work their tails off. And there's not a team in the state that I don't mind matching up with if my team shows up and they're taking care of business.
Absolutely. Anything else you want to add before we wrap up the basketball side of things?
No, I'm good.
Let's go. All right, so we're going to take a commercial break, and then when we come back, we're going to be having 5 fun questions with head coach Mike Dooney and the McAlester boys basketball team here on episode 19 of Running with the Herd, brought to you by Reagan Auto and What About Bob's Restaurant.
Reagan Auto's been servicing the community with exceptional service and outstanding work since 2015. At Reagan Auto, we are not only honest and reasonable, but we genuinely care about taking care of our customers. From our Reagan Auto family to yours, we wish you a happy new year. Entering 2025, we would like to encourage everyone to schedule your vehicle's maintenance and repairs with Reagan Auto. Stop by 306 East Wyandotte Avenue to schedule an appointment or call 918-715-3236. What About Bob's Restaurant, the home of Bob's Sunrise Surprise, is located at 610 North Main in McAlester. What About Bob serves up your favorite comfort food 7 days a week from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. Go down and see Olivia and the gang for breakfast and lunch. What About Bob's Restaurant, open 7 days a week from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. Check them out on their Facebook page, What About Bob's, 610 North Main in McAlester.
Welcome back to the KNED studios on Electric Avenue in McAlester, Oklahoma. This is your voice of the Buffaloes, Brandon Green, here at 8:43 in the morning. 38 degrees outside on your Monday, February 10th, the day after the Super Bowl. This Running with the Herd, brought to you by Reagan Auto and What About Bob's Restaurant. Is this episode of Running with the Herd is with head coach of the McAlester boys basketball team, Mike Dooney. And I mentioned it earlier, just a second ago actually, day after the Super Bowl, so we're going to have some Super Bowl related questions to see what you think here.
Oh no.
Okay. First off, did you watch the Super Bowl? How much of it did you watch?
So, no.
I don't blame you.
And the reason is it's basketball season right now.
Yeah.
So I haven't got to pay attention to football the way that I used to pay attention to football.
You didn't miss much.
I used to be obsessed with football and watch every game. But in basketball season now, it's about watching film and doing my job, and I try to get prepared. So those kind of things I had to let go because it was a distractor for me, and I would catch myself spending too much time worrying about those. Fantasy football I was obsessed with, and it wasn't good for my coaching. So in order to become a better coach and watch the film that I need to be watching, I gave up watching football.
I gotcha. Okay.
So it's hard for me to give a whole lot of comments on it right now.
I understand. But we will mention this. What is your favorite Super Bowl or party food?
That's
Good question.
Yeah. Well,
Matthew McConaughey says that football was created just so that we could eat more. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
my thing is, a year ago I found out that I'm gluten intolerant. So all the foods.
Oh, just a year ago?
Yeah. So all the foods that I've always loved to eat, now I got to be like, well, I can't have that. I can't have this.
Oh,
So it's
no.
hard to find those gluten-free foods that are finger foods because bread is what gluten is. So
Right.
Most
Oh,
of your
man.
things that you would think about with your Super Bowl, that is your gluten intolerant. I've always been a big fan of the cheese plates and the vegetable plates and
Okay.
those kind of things. So probably that if it's not gluten.
I gotcha. So what would be your dream artist or band to perform at the halftime show?
So my favorite artist is Eminem. And so
That'd be a killer halftime show.
I'm a big fan of him. Growing up, loved him. Every time I hear him, it makes me nostalgic, thinking back of my childhood. So
All right. Now, the term GOAT, greatest of all time, was thrown around a lot last night. You had Tom Brady in the booth. You had Patrick Mahomes trying to go for a three-peat. Who is your GOAT of basketball coaches?
of coaches, huge fan of Coach K. That's always been my legendary coach that I wanted to get to meet and go watch his practices and stuff. I bought everything I could that he would release as far as coaching videos and those kind of things.
Pretty good guy to follow there.
Yeah.
If you were to pick the NBA Finals matchup, what two teams would you like to see this summer?
This summer, I'm going to go with Oklahoma City and Boston.
That would be a good matchup. So it's funny, we have our McAlester Media Mafia, and we went to a OKC Boston game earlier this year. I think it was, January 4th, January 3rd? Something like that. Regardless, we have 3 members, I believe, of the Media Mafia that are Boston fans, and the rest of us are Oklahoma City Thunder fans. And so Philip, who's my color commentator during football season, he was sitting off in front and to the right, and I'm just smack talking them the entire time.
Oh, yeah.
And the people, because we went with like a group of 16 people, I'm sure people that were up in the rafters, because that's where you see all the fights at, I'm sure they didn't know that we were all together, so they thought that me and Philip were about to just start
Going back and
throwing
forth.
hands. I had the high ground though, so if I had to deliver like a Sparta kick, he was done for. Last one. If you hadn't gotten into coaching, what is one career path that you think you might have chosen?
So I've been offered multiple times to get out of coaching to go make more money. So I would like to make more money doing something else, but if I had not gotten into coaching, maybe sales, I may have been a youth director, something. If I want to make a difference like I do with coaching, it'd be youth director. If I want to go make money, something in sales. Right now I'm big into stocks and trading options and stuff like that, so I like doing that. If I got out of coaching, that's probably what I'd do full time.
Well, Coach, I want to say that I'm glad that you are coaching here for the McAlester Buffaloes. It's been a pleasure to be able to cover you the last year and a half, and ready to see how this season rolls out, and also to see how we keep on progressing here, because it's been a fun season so far for the Buffaloes.
I will say I love my job. I love the people I work for. I got a great staff over there. I got a great group of guys that are in the weight room with me. Our superintendent, I believe, does a great job. AD's got her back and supportive. Couldn't be happier in McAlester.
All right, Coach, that's about it for us today. I know we mentioned it in the last break, but is there anything else that you think that you can think of that we need to add before we call it a show?
I always want to thank my wife because she does all the behind-the-scenes work for me. So people see what the coach does, and he gets way too much credit. The wife behind the scenes is the one pulling the strings and handling all the stuff and handling the stress so I can focus on the coaching.
I didn't get to mention this last time, but how's it been to be able to have your daughter on the staff a little bit this year?
So my wife laughs about it because she stands up and coaches more than I do. She knows exactly what I'm going to say, so she's up coaching up the boys, and it's funny because you'll see her yelling the same stuff that I'm yelling, and I'm not telling her, she's yelling it before I'm yelling it. So it's probably been one of the greatest joys of my life because, as a coach, when you have kids, you're like, one day I'm going to get to coach my kids. But to have my daughter on the sidelines with us while I'm coaching my senior, I get one more week of this. And it's been an emotional roller coaster for me, but it's been freaking awesome.
Right.
Nothing better than coaching your own kids. Hardest thing I've ever done. He's gone without getting rewards and awards at times because I'm his dad and I don't let him get the awards when other people are like, well, he earned them. And that's been tough on him. But there's been no better thing that I've done in my career than coach my own kid.
That's awesome. That's a good way to wrap up this show. Coach, thank you so much for your time. And we will see you back on the court tomorrow against Tulsa Memorial. We encourage everyone to come on out to the back and be able to pack it because we only have 2 more home games for the McAlester Buffaloes basketball season set for Tuesday and also on Saturday. It's senior night, really senior day against Tahlequah. So we encourage everyone to come on out and show out for this McAlester Buffalo basketball team.
Appreciate you having me on.
Thank you so much, sir. Again, that was Running with the Herd, episode 19, brought to you by Reagan Auto and What About Bob's Restaurant with McAlester boys basketball coach Mike Dooney. We're going to hear from Reagan Auto and What About Bob's one more time, and then we're going to send it back to your regularly scheduled programming. So until next time, guys, don't just have a great day. Have a Buffalo day, everybody.
Reagan Auto's been servicing the community with exceptional service and outstanding work since 2015. At Reagan Auto, we are not only honest and reasonable, but we genuinely care about taking care of our customers. From our Reagan Auto family to yours, we wish you a happy new year. Entering 2025, we would like to encourage everyone to schedule your vehicle's maintenance and repairs with Reagan Auto. Stop by 306 East Wyandotte Avenue to schedule an appointment or call 918-715-3236. What About Bob's Restaurant, the home of Bob's Sunrise Surprise, is located at 610 North Main in McAlester. What About Bob serves up your favorite comfort food 7 days a week from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. Go down and see Olivia and the gang for breakfast and lunch. What About Bob's Restaurant, open 7 days a week from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. Check them out on their Facebook page, What About Bob's, 610 North Main in McAlester.